Every message, every video call, every digital payment, and every video that crosses the planet travels through a nearly invisible infrastructure. Beneath thousands of meters of water, in total darkness, cables thinner than they appear connect entire continents. This is how the secret backbone of the internet is manufactured and installed. The story of a submarine cable begins long before it touches the water. It starts with a common, abundant, and seemingly simple material, silica. Silica is present in quartz sand, but the type of glass that allows light to be transmitted across thousands of kilometers requires extreme purity. A tiny metallic particle, a microscopic bubble, or a minimal variation in chemical composition can affect signal transmission and transform a perfect section into a future failure. Therefore, the first step involves selecting and purifying the raw material. Quartz-rich sand is extracted, washed, filtered, and separated from impurities such as clays, oxides, mineral fragments, and organic matter. The usable fraction represents only a portion of the processed material. The rest may end up in construction, smelting, or roads, but the portion destined for optical fiber must undergo a much more rigorous level of control. The purified silica is then transformed into a key structure called a preform. The preform is a special glass rod that contains, in an enlarged size, the internal architecture of the future fiber. Its core and cladding have distinct optical properties. This difference allows the light to be confined within the core and move forward by internal reflection, even when the fiber bends within certain limits. To manufacture the preform, a silica tube rotates on a lathe while being heated with an extremely high-temperature flame. Inside, chemical gases circulate, reacting and depositing microscopic layers of glass. Each layer precisely modifies the refractive index, that is, the way light moves within the material. This process can take many hours because it is repeated layer after layer until a perfectly controlled optical structure is built. Then, the tube is heated until the internal layers solidify, become transparent, and the central cavity collapses. The result is a solid, heavy, and seemingly simple rod. However, inside, the geometry that will guide light for decades is already present. Before proceeding, the preform is inspected using optical and mechanical methods. Cracks, bubbles, opaque areas, chemical contamination, or any irregularity that could cause signal loss are looked for. When the preform passes the tests, it is taken to a drawing tower. There, one of the most impressive transformations of the process takes place. The bar is placed at the top of a vertical structure and slowly descends into a furnace that reaches temperatures close to 2000 degrees Celsius. The glass softens, and a filament begins to emerge from its lower end. This filament is stretched by traction wheels until it reaches a diameter of just 125 micrometers. Precision must be absolute. The resulting fiber is thinner than a human hair, but can measure tens or hundreds of kilometers if produced continuously. Laser sensors measure its diameter in real time, and the system adjusts the pulling speed to maintain a constant value. A nearly imperceptible variation could affect light transmission or weaken the fiber during cable assembly. Immediately after drawing, the fiber receives protective coatings. First, a flexible inner layer is applied, designed to absorb small stresses and protect the glass. Then, a tougher outer layer is added. Both are hardened with ultraviolet light. The glass is encapsulated within a polymer coating that raises the overall diameter to about 250 micrometers and protects it from moisture, abrasion, and microcracks. The fiber then undergoes strength testing. It is passed through tension systems that detect weak points. If a microcrack exists, the filament breaks during the test, and that section is discarded before being hidden inside a cable thousands of kilometers long. Attenuation is also measured, which indicates how much signal is lost as the light travels. In submarine systems, this loss must be extremely low because every fraction counts when the signal crosses entire oceans. Approved fibers are color-coded. This coding allows them to be recognized during assembly, splicing, and maintenance. They can then be bundled into tapes or inserted into loose tubes containing gels or water-blocking materials. These tubes allow the fibers some internal movement without directly experiencing the cable's stresses. Although the fiber can already carry information, it is still too fragile to survive in the ocean. It needs to become part of a much more complex structure. A submarine cable may look simple from the outside, but it's actually a multi-layered piece of engineering. Its mission is to protect extremely delicate glass fibers as they traverse some of the harshest environments on the planet. In deep water, the cable rests under immense pressure, in freezing temperatures, and in total darkness. Closer to shore, it faces even more aggressive hazards: anchors, trawling nets, rocks, currents, waves, and maritime traffic. Construction begins around bundled optical fibers. The tubes that contain them are placed alongside strength elements. These components can include aramid fibers, reinforcing rods, or metal wires. Their function is to absorb tension during laying and prevent the stress from falling on the glass filaments. In many designs, the tubes are arranged helically around a central core. This geometry distributes the forces and allows the cable to be flexible without compromising the fiber. Water-blocking materials are also added. If the outer jacket were damaged at any point, water could travel inside the cable and affect large sections. To prevent this, gels, inflatable tapes, or superabsorbent threads that seal out moisture are used. These materials expand upon contact with water and block its longitudinal spread. On the seabed, even a small ingress of water can become a huge problem if it is not contained. Next, a polymer coating is applied. The assembly then passes through an extruder that applies a continuous layer of plastic material around the internal structure. This coating protects against abrasion, moisture, and direct contact with the environment. The cable is cooled, dried, and marked with technical information. Then mechanical testing begins. It is bent, subjected to tension, torsion, crushing, impacts, and flexing cycles. At the same time, light signals are sent through its fibers to verify that the optical quality remains intact. Submarine cables also require an essential element: power. Although information travels via light, the optical repeaters installed along the route need energy. These repeaters amplify the signal at regular intervals to compensate for accumulated losses. To power them, the cable includes metallic conductors that carry direct current from the terminal stations located on land. The repeaters are rugged capsules designed to operate for decades without maintenance. Once installed on the ocean floor, accessing them is extremely expensive and complex. That's why they undergo rigorous testing before being integrated into the system. They must withstand pressure, corrosion, thermal changes, and years of continuous operation. Their location is precisely calculated based on distance, expected fiber loss, and link characteristics. The cable's armor varies depending on the area. In deep waters, where human activity is less, the cable can be relatively lightweight. There, the main challenge is withstanding the laying process, pressure, and contact with the seabed. Near the coast, the situation changes. Shallow waters concentrate most of the risks. Fishing boats, trawls, anchors, ports, rocks, and waves can all damage the cable. For this reason, coastal sections receive thicker armor with one or more layers of steel wires. This difference makes the submarine cable a variable structure. Not all sections have the same thickness or weight. A section crossing an abyssal plain at great depth can be much thinner than a section near the beach. The route is designed with specific segments, each manufactured with the appropriate level of protection. The cable is not simply a uniform line. It is a series of sections adapted to the risks of the seabed. Before being loaded onto the ship, each segment is coiled and carefully stored. But the logistics began long before that. Engineers must study the underwater route using sonar, unmanned vehicles, and geological data. The goal is to find a stable, safe, and repairable path. The shortest route is rarely the best. Sometimes it's better to travel hundreds of additional kilometers to avoid submarine canyons, volcanoes, geological faults, heavily fished areas, shipping lanes, or protected areas. The ocean floor is not a tranquil plain. It has mountains, valleys, crevices, soft sediments, rocks, slopes, and active regions. A poorly laid cable can become suspended between 2 points, rub against a rock, or fall into an unstable area. That's why planning can take years. Maps, permits, environmental studies, maritime traffic data, and agreements with authorities in various countries are gathered. Once the route is approved, the cable is manufactured in the exact order in which it will be installed. This part is crucial. The The sections are loaded onto cable-laying vessels in a carefully calculated sequence. Segments that must be laid first are positioned for easy access. Coastal sections, deep-sea sections, repeaters, and splicing sections are organized as a continuous operation. Cable-laying vessels have enormous tanks where the cable is wound in a spiral, layer upon layer. Loading can take weeks. Operators and machinery monitor the tension, bend radius, and the order of each turn. An incorrect crossing, a bend that's too sharp, or uneven tension could cause problems during deployment. Some ships can carry thousands of kilometers of cable. In transoceanic projects, several vessels may work from opposite ends until they meet at a splice point. Before setting sail, everything is checked. Navigation systems, dynamic positioning, brakes, rollers, stern chutes, underwater vehicles, splicing tools, testing equipment, communications, and spare parts. The weather window also matters. Rough seas affect the accuracy of the laying. The operation requires a large ship to slowly advance along an invisible route while releasing a cable that must drop precisely onto the seabed. Laying is the moment when years of engineering become a real line on the seabed. The cable leaves the ship's tank, passes through tension control machines, and descends through the stern via a roller system known as a chute. From there, it enters the water and begins its descent to the seabed following a calculated curve. This curve depends on the depth, the ship's speed, the weight of the cable, the current, and the exit speed. The balance is delicate. If the cable is launched too quickly, it can accumulate excessively on the seabed and form loops or tangled sections. If it is launched too slowly, it is subjected to excessive tension and can be damaged before reaching the seabed. The ship's systems continuously adjust the speed, braking force, and position. The goal is for the cable to touch the seabed at the intended point without being taut like a rope or bunched up like a loose line. Dynamic positioning of the ship is crucial. Instead of anchoring, the ship uses computer-controlled thrusters to stay precisely on the planned route. Sensors compensate for wind, waves, and currents. Every deviation matters, because the cable must fall over terrain that has been previously surveyed. A small displacement can lead it toward a rock, a slope, or an area of unstable sediment. In deep water, the cable can take a long time to reach the seabed. If the depth exceeds several kilometers, a significant length remains suspended between the ship and the ocean floor. This vertical section generates tension and requires very precise control of the process. Brakes, pulleys, and measuring systems work constantly to ensure the cable descends without free fall or overloading. Repeaters are deployed at precise points during laying. They are larger and heavier than standard cable, so their passage through the machinery is carefully controlled. Once laid on the seabed, they are integrated into the line. Their job is to amplify the optical signal for years, powered by the current traveling through the internal conductors. Each repeater functions like a silent station in the middle of the ocean, without operators, daily maintenance, or external light. Near the coast, the process becomes more complex. There, the cable is not always simply left on the seabed. In many areas, it is buried to protect it from anchors, nets, currents, and human activity. This is done using underwater plows or remotely operated vehicles that dig a trench in the sediment. Some systems employ high-pressure water jets to fluidize the seabed and allow the cable to sink. The sediment then covers it again. Unmanned underwater vehicles, UAVs, accompany the operation and transmit real-time images and data. Their cameras, sonar, and sensors allow for verification of the cable's position, burial depth, and ground conditions. If a rock, unexpected slope, or poorly formed trench appears, operators can adjust the vessel's speed, modify the tension, or correct the procedure. Landing on shore is a separate operation. The cable end is brought ashore using small boats, buoys, divers, or specialized vehicles. On the beach or in a prepared port area, the cable is laid through underground conduits to a terminal station. This station is a technical building where the underwater infrastructure connects to the terrestrial networks. Transmission, power, monitoring, and control equipment are located there. When two sections need to be joined at sea, a splice is performed. This operation demands extreme precision. The cable ends are retrieved, prepared, and carefully opened to access the fibers. Each fiber is cleaned, aligned, and fused to its corresponding fiber using heat. The optical splice must generate the least possible loss. It is then protected with mechanical layers, seals, covers, and resistance elements that restore the cable's robustness. A splice in the middle of the ocean can take days. During that time, the ship must maintain its position, protect the cable, and verify each connection. Once completed, optical tests are performed to ensure that light flows correctly. Only then is the cable returned to the water and laying continues. The installation is finished when both ends reach their terminal stations. But the system is not yet operational. First, a comprehensive battery of tests is performed. Signals are sent through all the fibers. Attenuation, repeater response, electrical continuity, optical power, link stability, and the integrity of each segment are measured. Technicians compare the results with the design parameters. If everything works within the expected parameters, the cable is certified. From that moment on, the system is integrated into the global network. Data begins to travel as pulses of light through fibers that traverse entire oceans. An international video call, a bank transfer, an internet search, or a movie streamed from a distant server can all pass through this same infrastructure. The user experiences an instant connection. Under the sea, that immediacy depends on years of design, manufacturing, testing, permits, navigation, and precision. Submarine cables also require monitoring and maintenance. Although designed to last for decades, they can be damaged. The most frequent causes occur near the coast, where fishing and anchoring pose significant risks. When a fault is detected, operators locate the point using optical and electrical measurements. A repair vessel then travels to the area, retrieves the cable with specialized tools, cuts out the damaged section, makes new splices, and redeploys it to the seabed. This maintenance demonstrates the true scale of the infrastructure. The internet seems instantaneous and ethereal, but it depends on physical objects that can break, be repaired, and become functional again. Each submarine cable is a feat of global engineering. It begins as a strand of glass manufactured with microscopic purity, becomes an armored structure capable of withstanding the ocean, and is finally laid by ships that advance meter by meter along invisible routes. On the seabed, where sunlight does not reach and pressure crushes any weak structure, lies an essential part of modern life. Continents remain connected by thin, silent, and almost unknown lines. Within them, no ships, fuel, or goods travel. Light travels, and in that light moves a huge part of the world's information.